Hey guys, I haven't made a video in a long time. I missed you guys. I missed you. But I've got videos coming to you all day, so here we go. We're going to start off with my review for The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Peter Parker has been Spider-Man for a long time, and I really love Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. Him as Spider-Man and Peter Parker is the perfect Spider-Man for a movie. I will defend that till I die. But you can tell Andrew Garfield is not 19 years old in this movie. You're watching it and you're like, I feel like you're like 30, dude. So now Jamie Foxx becomes Electro. And in the trailers, we were like going to get like 3 villains in this movie. There technically are, but there are not 3 villains in this movie. Saying there's 3 villains in this movie is like saying there's 3 villains in The Dark Knight. You know how in The Dark Knight you had Scarecrow for one scene, you had the Joker for all of the film, and then you had Two-Face at the end? That's kind of what this movie is like. Rhino's in it, kind of, not really. He's this dude Spider-Man takes down in about 2.5 minutes. Now we're down to 2 villains. Electro, though, he is the real villain. The other one isn't in it much, so really it's like 1.5 villains in this movie. Electro was really cool. Jamie Foxx was good as Electro, and I loved the way Electro looked. His skin was all see-through and blue and electrico. I felt like I could see right through him. That's awesome. I love things that just look unique and original and interesting and that were very cool. Speaking of things that look cool, this movie looks really cool. My favorite parts of the movie were Spider-Man being Spider-Man, swinging around, do his thing. But ultimately, it is a movie about Peter Parker more than Spider-Man. And that didn't necessarily bother me with this movie, but there were moments in this movie where I was like, this movie is dragging on. When I first heard the movie was going to have 3 villains, I was like, it better be long enough. And I found out this movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes long, and I was like, okay, it's long enough for 3 villains, I guess. It's still going to feel crowded, but it's long enough. But there are not 3 villains that share equal time in the movie. It really is centered on one villain. And that's 2 hours and 20 minutes of that, which could work, but this movie just wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. Most of the movie revolves around Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy's will they, won't they, are they, aren't they, not love thing that they got going on, which is fine. I imagine it's Spider-Man. He's going to have a complicated love life. This on-off again, I was like, do it or don't do it. But there are a couple of very touching moments in this movie too. Peter and Harry Osborn have their friendship, and it starts getting a bit complicated. And then there's Electro that Spider-Man has to deal with. And then his love life he has to deal with. And then that thing with his parents he has to deal with. You know that thing where it's like, oh, your parents have a secret that they mostly cut out of The Amazing Spider-Man? Well, they touch on that in this movie, and then they finish it. And by the end, you're just like, oh, okay, the thing with his parents was just to learn one thing. One thing you already knew from the first movie. Oscorp. Bad. Alright, maybe a couple other things you learn also, but I still don't know why it had to be in the movie. It's just another storyline they had to fit in this movie, and that's what makes the movie so crowded. It's not all the villains, it's all the storylines he has to deal with. By the end of this movie, there is another villain. And I'm going to make a comparison here, and I know a lot of you don't want to hear me use it because even I don't want to use it, but I'm using it because it's the best comparison I can use. Venom in Spider-Man 3 had more screen time than the villain at the end of this movie. And they put him in here to set up for the Sinister Six movie they wanted to do. And I was like, alright, this movie is just a setup for the next movie. I know it sounds like I'm really bitching on this movie, but to be honest, I did really like this movie. But for every scene in the movie that I loved, and I will use the term love, there are scenes in this movie that I loved. I was like, that's great, that's awesome, that's perfect, it's emotional. That is perfect for Spider-Man. There is another scene that comes up that I hate. I'm like, that's stupid. Why did they put that in that movie? That doesn't even make sense. In the end, Andrew Garfield, still awesome as Spider-Man. Emma Stone, awesome as Gwen Stacy. Dane DeHaan as Harry Osborn, I loved him. Way better than James Franco in the other series. Dane DeHaan was awesome. He was, between him and Andrew Garfield, my 2 favorite actors in this movie. The movie was really good. I know I complained about it a lot in this review, but that's what a reviewer does. He talks about the shitty things, he talks about the good things. I really love this movie. I'm going to give this movie 4 out of 5. I really want to give it 5 out of 5, but I'm really pushing it with the 4 out of 5 too, because a lot of people hated this movie, but from my perspective, I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. It's not as good as Captain America the Winter Soldier was, and I'm disappointed. Like, I wanted Spider-Man 2 to be the #1 movie of the year. I wanted this to be my top 1 of the year. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to be, because this is May. We still have another how many months of movies to come. But this movie was still really good. 4 out of 5. That was my rating for The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So, did you guys see The Amazing Spider-Man 2? What did you think about it? Did you like it better than the first one? Do you like the original Spider-Man movies better than the Amazing Spider-Man movies? That's a lot of questions. Comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, then click that subscribe button to see more.